sometimes we can read Genesis 2 the way it was from the beginning, and we can say to ourselves, well, that's good. That was the first wedding. That's how this whole thing got kicked off. Therefore, you leave the side of your parents to be united to the side of your spouse. And this now is how you go through life. This is how it is from the beginning. So in this session, next session, carrying it through the weekend, I want to talk to you about a principle we speak of often. You may not even hear it in counseling, but a counselor, I can guarantee you, is using this as he goes through the session. It's this big idea called confirmation bias, or it's also known as confirmatory bias. Confirmatory bias says it's the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs. By the time you're about 10 years old, you've summed up your worldview. Gary Small used to teach it this way for years. Age 1 and 2 and 3, your parents hand you a filing cabinet. Ages 4, 5, and 6, you get the drawers, start figuring them out, and you start getting the hanging files placed in there. 7, 8, 9, 10, you're putting individual files in there. By about the age 10, your entire worldview is summed up, and you're going to spend the rest of your life processing everything you see and hear and feel. Everything's going to go through the worldview that you have. And some of you right now, you just had a kid in your home turn 11, and you're like, oh no, we've ruined them. We believe Jesus breathes life into dead people, so don't freak out on this right here. But it's an important part. We also call this the family of origin, right? Something was spoken to you time after time after time. Eventually, you started believing it. And I got to tell you, it's the reason many of you are Baptist. It's the reason many of you are Republicans. It's the reason many of you will never leave the state of Texas. See? That confirmation bias says I'm going to filter everything through what I believe to be true. So this is why it's important to think through what you believe about marriage and what you believe about your spouse. Okay, we'll keep going with this. And this is according to Psychology Today. Confirmation bias leads the individual to stop gathering information when the evidence gathered so far confirms the views, or to be honest, the prejudices one would like to be true. This is where marriage grows stale, where marriage begins to disconnect, and this is where couples begin to think about and head toward divorce. When they get to a point where they stop learning, where they get to a point where they stop looking for new evidence and new decisions, because we're constantly changing. The value of marriage, what you believe about marriage, is going to lead us into the next session, but it speaks to what you believe about your spouse. One more big idea behind this. Once we have formed a view, we embrace information that confirms that view while ignoring or rejecting information that casts doubt on it. This is my definition of confirmation bias. It's simply making a decision, then looking for the evidence to back it up. Have you made the decision that marriage is important? I love watching White House movies and movies about the president. I'm passionate about this. I love watching movies where the president's being protected. You see missiles coming at Air Force One, and they throw out the flares, and the flares stop the missile. Another one comes at Air Force One. The flares go out, stop the missile. They run out of flares, and then a pilot in a fighter jet decides to take his plane in between the missile and Air Force One to take the hit and to sacrifice his life. Whenever I use this illustration a lot with my kids to say, let me tell you something, that pilot didn't decide at that moment to do that. That pilot made that decision a long time ago. He made that decision, and now when he's in the moment, he's just acting on it. Dr. David Jeremiah used the illustration. Don't make decisions about your purity in the backseat of a car. My older friends in here know what I'm talking about. I'll change that for the younger. Don't make decisions about purity while you're Netflixing and chilling. So I'm trying to teach my kids. There's power in decisions. You make decisions, and then when you're in the situation, you're not making decisions in the situation. You're just acting out of what you've decided. So some of you right now that are married just a couple of months, where's 2 months? Wave at me 2 months. You're in love right now. Man, it's good that you're at a marriage conference, 2 months married. None of us in here thought of it till years later. Things are good right now. You've got to decide now what you believe about marriage for when you're in the situation when you think, this isn't what I thought it was. But I already decided. I made the decision. See, I've made the decision my wife is valuable. I've made the decision. I'm married to a strong woman. Raise your hand in here if you're married to a strong woman. Every single guy in here? Wow, welcome to 2017. Okay, so they have been set free in Jesus. I can tell you that. I'm married to a strong woman. And I've made decisions about her. I don't want to make decisions about her when we're in conflict. I don't. I've decided what I believe about my wife so that when I find myself in conflict, I'm just acting out of the decisions that I've made. My wife is very valuable. She's strong. We can be driving down the road. I'm pretty much in the same mode all the time. We can be having a real casual conversation, and something is said or done, and just like that, you're like, oh, wow, what just happened right there? It's because something wells up in her, kapow! And I'm just like, I have no idea where that came from. She's just everything. We have people work out, the strong ladies that work out. This is my wife. We can't take casual strolls anywhere. We're always like that. She'll ask me, you squeezing your cheeks together? Let's keep this thing going. Everything's just passion for her. I come home, listen, and I know where I'm at, and I'm going to be careful as I say this, but Chip and Joanna Gaines, you're all a few miles from her, so everybody knows, fixer-upper. But if I ever meet Chip Gaines, okay, I'm going to punch him right in the face. I hate that man and everything he stands for. Okay, I don't even think he's a Christian. I'll be real honest with you. No one should enjoy working on houses as much as he does. Because I'll come in, you don't have to leave, sir. Are you friends with Chip Gaines? Sir, I just want to make sure. Okay, he just got up and stormed off on that point. But I'll come in, this is my wife. I don't think this way at all. I'll come in the house and I'll be like, hey babe, how was your day? Good, we hug, we kiss. And I'm like, well, what's going on? She goes, you know what I thought would be fun? I'm like, what's that? She goes, how about after dinner, we move that wall over there? Yeah, this man is ruining my marriage. Because not only does he fix up things, he tells jokes and he dances and he has fun. I can't stand the man. But then I found a term on the internet that saved my marriage. You know what the term is? Load bearing. Okay? Every wall in our home is load bearing. You can't touch one or the whole house comes down. This guy's over here like, oh, wow, this is. But the problem is, honestly, you're going to learn about her, but things are going to happen. You're like, whoa, decide now. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do you part, till one of you lays the other in the arms of Jesus, or till the Lord returns. Amen. That's it. That's it. That's why these decisions, right? Decisions have power. Decisions have power. This is why we got to get back to our kids who aren't making decisions in relationships anymore. They're just sliding past all traditional relationship milestones. They're just saying, I'm just going to scoot by it. I don't want to decide on anything, because if I don't decide, then when whatever this is falls apart, we won't hurt so bad. No, that's just not how you're wired. You make decisions, confirmation bias, and then you look for the evidence to back them up. This is why it's important to decide what you believe about marriage. So let's look at some of the cultural beliefs for just a second. Cultural belief number one, there is one perfect person out there for me. And I'm calling them cultural beliefs, but I could also say cultural lies. There's one person, and here's why. I can give you so much application on this, but for the sake of time, I'll just share a few. It's that lady in our church who's 35 and never been married, who feels like she missed her perfect one. I said, I'm really sad that belief has found its way into your heart. That you maybe knew who he was when you were 23, y'all didn't get married, and now you missed your chance. There's one perfect person. You know where we get these ideas? eHarmony.com, Match.com, Ancestry.com, FarmersOnly.com. We see the couple twirling around on the screen and we say, there's the soulmate. Hey, I just want you to know where soulmate theology comes from. I don't believe in the idea of soulmates. Soulmate comes from ancient philosophy that taught, your soul pre-existed. We don't believe that, right? Your soul pre-existed, and then when it was time for you to be born, God sent your soul down to meet your body and all. That's where we get the idea of soulmate. From all of eternity, this soul and this soul were supposed to connect one day. See, these beliefs really move people forward in what they do in choosing to get married. And not just that, the reason we're sharing this in the first session is because this is what's allowing people to get out of marriage. When they say, man, I just met someone who's funner. I just met someone who listens to me better. I have chemistry with this person that I've never had with her or with him. And we begin thinking, maybe it shouldn't have been you. And we were too young. And it should have been you. There's one perfect person. If you have that idea, that belief that's deep down in your soul, the scripture says, Proverbs 4:23, above all else guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. In other words, every action you take and every word you speak flows from your heart. If this belief is in your heart, it can prevent you from marrying, and it can kick you out of marriage if you believe you found someone better. Cultural belief number 2, true love means smooth sailing from here on out. I'm sorry, 2 months, but this is a small enough group. We got to talk about it a little bit. Because the problem with that, if you believe true love means it's going to be easy ride. As soon as you hit a bump in the road, he must not love me like I thought he did. She must not love me like I thought she did. We didn't experience this when we were dating. Oh no, what's the matter? And you're going to think something's broken. Nothing's broken. You're in the grind of life. And this is why you got to go back to from the beginning is you now can think, I've got someone to walk through side by side. She's not the grind of life. You're not the grind of life. She's your spouse, your companion to go through the grind of life with. This is so important to understand because if this belief is sitting in your heart, you're going to think, well, we must not be in love. So now, again, we're out of the marriage. How about the next one? Kind of the opposite of what I just shared. Cultural belief number 3. Marriage requires constant, grueling work to stay in love. Like that's all. And I hear people say this all the time. Marriage is hard. One of my big things I challenge pastors with around the country. Stop leading out with the sermon. If you're going to do a series on marriage, stop leading out with the message, marriage is hard. That's that marriage sucks the life out of you. It drains you. It beats you down. Right? So you can be more like Jesus. Get that message in there. Oh, no. One of the reasons young people don't want to get married because they constantly hear this message from us. It's hard. It's grueling. It's painful. And they're like, hey, if I want to be more like Jesus, I'd rather just go on that 1-week mission trip we're taking to, I'm not going to give my whole life to this. And I can get plenty of I call it our material, the church's material, Christian material, but I went, even eHarmony.com really kind of gets this. Marriage doesn't need work. Marriage needs attention. The time that you give to your marriage will pay exponential dividends in joy, companionship, sexual satisfaction, and teamwork. But it shouldn't feel like work. More often than not, it should feel like play. You should be enjoying one another. You've left the side of your parents to now join the side of your spouse, and now you're going through the grind together. But I meet plenty of people who haven't left home yet. The immaturity, and this is what's going to move us into cultural belief 4 and 5. Here is a lie that we're still teaching, and I have to throw it in there because I hear Christians say this all the time. 50% of all marriages end in divorce. It actually peaked in the 80s, and it's been trending downward ever since. Shanti Feldhahn, if you're looking for a great book on that, she wrote a great book on happiness and marriage. But people say since 50% of marriages end in divorce, we might not make it. Okay, and I hear this. My cousin, he's a year older than me, Greg. He's never been married. He tells me, Ted, I'm not walking down the aisle till I can answer one question. I said, well, what's that? He said, am I willing to spend the next 6 to 8 years of my life with this woman? And when you really get in, it's this big idea that's hitting our culture. It's in Europe. It's going to be here officially one day. The mindset is here. The The courts aren't giving out these licenses yet, but I don't think we're too far from it, where we're having starter marriages, trial marriages. I'm just going to give it a shot because it's probably not going to work anyway. If you go into it with the idea, this ain't going to happen, probably won't, but let's have a good time while we're together. And then if this isn't what we pick up from the TV through the matchmaking sites, and by the way, I'm picking on the matchmaking sites, it doesn't matter how you meet. It really doesn't matter. It's what you do after you meet. This is the key. But you would think compatibility is the secret to a great marriage. Like that's the number one secret to a great marriage, and I'm here to tell you it is not. Character is the number one secret. It's the greatest secret to a great marriage. Because 39 years of marriage, that flows from commitment, and commitment comes from character. You've made the decision, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. We will stay together. We will stay married. We are not going to leave one another. Okay? Compatibility flows from the same place, but compatibility is not something you find. It's not something you discover. It's not something you test for. There's not an algorithm on the planet that can put you with a completely compatible person. You may have chemistry, but I promise you, you will not have compatibility. Compatibility is something you create. It is not something you find. It's the negotiating of differences. It's the coming together, and we'll see that more in the next session. But speaking of character, that's where I kind of want to land the plane on this session. 1 Corinthians 13:11 speaks of these two phases of life. And for all of history and biblically and traditionally, up until 1904, we only had two seasons of life, childhood and adulthood. The Apostle Paul says it here. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. I'm meeting with 30 and 40-year-olds who are still struggling with this thing called prolonged adolescence. Too much privilege, not enough responsibility. Their parents didn't give them the responsibility. College didn't seem to do it. Their first couple of employers haven't done. Now they're sitting in front of me. Their marriage is falling apart. I'm the first one that looks at them and says, hey guys, I love you, and here's what I'm here to tell you. It's time to grow up. It's time to take on the responsibility, because when you raise the value of your marriage and you say this is important and this is till death do us part, you are making an adult decision. You say, I tell the young guys in our church, I met with one guy. He had 5 jobs in 1 year. And he wanted to meet with me to see what was going on. I don't know what the problem is, Ted, these jobs. And this is what he tells me, and I'm not making this up one bit. 5 jobs, 5 bad bosses. And I just looked at him and I said, I didn't come up with this, but it's a line I've used for years. I said, my friend, wherever you go, there you are. I said, what have you done to contribute to being such a lousy employer? Or employee. I said, what seems to be the problem? It wasn't even in his mind. You know why? Because he grew up in a kid-centered home where his mom and dad told him his whole life, you're awesome. You're great. You're the best thing. His parents should have been saying, we love you. You're a welcomed addition to this home, but you ain't the center of it. You're going to leave one day and you need to go out and be prepared. So I'm going to ask you these questions. And you can raise your hands on the first couple, but on the last few, do not raise your hand. Would you raise your hand if you can say this is true of you? We were mature when we married. Okay. No, it's okay. You're like, is this a test of humility right here? But you can raise it. Look at their high five back there. Baptists are the only ones I know that can be that can brag about being humble. I gotta be honest with you. I can be honest. So a few of you, again, and can I tell you, it's typically the older generation. We didn't have a choice, Ted. My dad kicked us out when we were 14 and 15. He gave us even a little part of land. We went out there, we worked it, we built our own house, but we didn't have a choice. You completed the 5 milestones quickly. Leave home, finish school, get a job, get married, start a family. You completed them in a very short period of time, if not in the same week. It was like... So there wasn't a choice. Culture said it's time to grow up, and you're getting a job, you're working full time, your family needs the money, your family needs the help. Get out there after it. How many of you would say this, and probably be a few more than the first group? We were immature when we married, but grew up together. Okay. I love that you're looking. These are good questions. You probably get on the same page as you go home tonight on this. How many of you can raise your hand on this? No, do not raise your hand on this one. Okay, that's just do not. We were immature when we married. I grew up and my spouse did not. Do not raise. Hey, put your hand down. Hey, Okay, Buck Fever, you keep your hand down. They both raised their hand on that one. That's fantastic. We were immature when we married. My spouse grew up and I did not. Can anybody admit to that? Good. I always tell people that's a huge step. That's a huge step in the right direction. How about this? We were immature when we married and we still are. I share all that. Don't raise your hand. Stop raising your hand on these last ones. The whole point of that is for everyone to see we are in different levels. We're at different levels. We're in a different process. But character building is process. And this is what I want young people to know. Marriage can be a character building activity. Okay? It will test us. It will challenge us. But again, I don't want my marriage, this is a belief I have, I don't want my marriage finding its way into the grind. Okay? I have a strong wife who is a united front with me when it comes to raising our kids. I like having a strong wife who's also a strong mom. I love it. She's a strong friend. I hear her on the phone with people and saying, you know what, you only said that. You did that, and she is coming right. And I'm like, good, you go. I was talking to an elder last week, and I was doing a whole thing on listening and trying to be a better listener, and we had a difference of opinion on an issue. And I go, well, tell me what you think. I want to know. Okay, and so what I hear you say, I was trying to practice active listening, and in the background, my wife was going, like, go to the other room. Go into the other room. Yeah, you see that, Barry, you know what I'm talking about. Let me have my own conversation, right? I want my wife there. If the day comes, I get a doctor's report that is not favorable. I mean, this hasn't been anything, but like she's been wanting to care for me. I'm like, strength is a good thing. And it's all in how you look at it. It's all in what you do with it. This idea of confirmation bias and the value that you place on marriage and the beliefs you have in your heart about marriage are part of personal responsibility. This is a key, and we'll look at this in the fourth session.
Together